away from it, you get pulled further in. And that's what it's saying, right?
Right. Right.
There's a couple more pieces I want to talk to you about that says, if you are deserving, you will understand the mystery of God on your own. What does that mean?
Yes, this takes us to the question of, do you need a teacher? The value of teaching versus personal exploration.
Yes.
People often ask me, who should I study with? I got a phone call from someone in Virginia, said, do you know somebody here I can study with? And certainly it's useful to have a teacher and to study with someone, at least to begin with. But I think a lot of what spirituality means is to confront yourself, without someone else. It's useful to have a guide. We talked before about the dangers of mystical search, and it's useful to have a companion or a guide. But ultimately, you really have to explore on your own. And I think spiritual insight is most successful when it involves a good amount of private introspection, of going off on one's own, walking, meditating, sitting, and not always trying to fill the silence. Learning how to be comfortable with silence. The beautiful line in the Psalms, L'cha dumiyah tehillah. To you, silence is praise. It's very puzzling. What does that mean, to you, silence is praise? But somehow there's a power in silence. And if we always turn on the radio or, call up a friend or check online what's happening, we can lose that great invitation to dwell in silence. So I think it's wonderful mystical technique, a wonderful spiritual discipline to cultivate an appreciation of silence and aloneness. Right? There's a difference between aloneness and loneliness.
Right.
Nobody wants loneliness, but aloneness can be a very, very rich and very rewarding experience, and that's part of what's involved in spiritual discovery.
The ecstatic Kabbalah is different, right, than the kind of Kabbalah you're describing.
Yeah, I wouldn't draw a sharp distinction. I mean, there's
Okay.
the whole realm of Kabbalah. In Hebrew, it's called Kabbalah Nevu'it, prophetic Kabbalah, and some people now call that ecstatic Kabbalah. What that really means is techniques of meditation that will, take you to another state of mind. I've been involved mostly in working on the Zohar, which is an interpretation of the Torah, but I would say it's a kind of study which has an ecstatic element. In other words, the author of the Zohar, the author or the authors of the Zohar, how did they create what they created? They didn't just sit down and, begin writing. They had certain experiences. You could say that they meditated on the Bible itself. Maybe they used the text of the Bible as a technique of meditation. And then they had some breakthrough and some insight, but their experience of study had an ecstatic element as well. But there is a whole field of Kabbalah known as ecstatic Kabbalah. It's often associated with the name of Abraham Abulafia. And he developed certain techniques of meditation. These are described, I talk about them a little bit in the Essential Kabbalah.
Right.
There's another book called Meditation and Kabbalah by R.A. Kaplan, Kaplan. And that has a lot of material on meditative techniques, including what you've been calling ecstatic Kabbalah.
And wasn't Abraham influenced by Sufism and yoga?
He was a very interesting Kabbalist. He's also in the 13th century. It was a very, very fruitful century. And Abulafia traveled widely, was open to other religious traditions. He may well have encountered certain breathing techniques that may have come from yoga. He almost certainly had contact with Sufis, and he tried to learn from those traditions and enrich his Jewish practice and his Jewish knowledge by being open to other faiths. This got him in trouble with, certain closed-minded people, and he had a very rough time. He also began to think of himself as the Messiah, which can get you into trouble. But Abulafia was a very profound Kabbalist, and some of his writings are very, very moving.
How do you feel about corporeality?
Physical.
In fact, explain it. Corporeality.
Yeah, I mean,
How God
talking
feels
about
and
the
acts.
material and the spiritual. So, some religious traditions say that you have to deny yourself all physical pleasure in order to find God. In other words, if you're having a good time, then you're not doing something religious. That kind of dichotomy you find in many traditions, Jewish, Christian, Islamic, Eastern, Western. What's wonderful about the Kabbalah is that it says really you should try to develop techniques for finding God within the physical realm, so that physical pleasures, eating, drinking, sexuality, those can actually become avenues for religious experience. Now here, we're treading on dangerous ground here too, because you can easily go overboard and justify your own greed or lust and say that you're trying to find God. But Kabbalah really believes that you serve God through and in the body. There's a beautiful line in the Bible, Mi b'sari echazeh Eloha, in the book of Job. From my flesh I will see God. It's not clear what it means in the original context, but it's taken to mean that you should try to develop ways of experiencing God through the physical realm, not by avoiding or denying yourself the physical, but to turn the mundane into the holy. This is not an invention of the Kabbalah. You could find this, there's a wonderful appreciation of the physical world in the Bible. And then in rabbinic, for example, God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. In the book of Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis. And the rabbis of the Talmud develop a whole series of barachot, of blessings, in which one is supposed to realize the beauty of the world and appreciate the goodness of the world. One scholar has called this normal mysticism. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but that really describes what Rabbinic Judaism is trying to create. Normal mysticism. In other words, make the everyday a series of opportunities of appreciating God. Before you eat something, say a blessing. Blessed are you, O God, who brought this fruit into being, who creates the fruit of the earth, who creates the fruit of the ground, who brings forth bread from the earth. So if you can involve yourself in the world, but not lose sight of the transcendent aspect of reality, that, I think, is really the goal of Judaism and of Kabbalah.
That was beautifully put. Is the correct word beshert? Beshert, that this project would be funded by the Pritzker Foundation. What a huge, mammoth project. And you have 6 editions done already?
Of the volumes of the Zohar, I've finished 6 volumes, and I hope to complete 3 more. And there are two people who I've given some training to, who will work on volumes 10 through 12. So it'll be 12 volumes in all when it's complete. Right now, it's about halfway done.
Given your past experience of the 6 volumes, how long do you think the other ones will take?
I hope to complete my work, I would say, in the next 4 or 5 years.
Wow. And that's every day you're doing this, right?
Yeah, I work 6 days a week. Shabbat, I do some studying related to Zohar. But it's hard for me to take a day off from the work. I do take some breaks, but it's really drawn me in, and it's very, even though it's very demanding, it's very exciting and very fulfilling. Even after I've been doing it for 13 years now, this project, but I still find it challenging and exciting.
It's definitely alive, and it obviously talks to you. It talks to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so honored that you're here, and I wanted to know if there's anything else you'd like to say.
I would just encourage people to start studying it, not to be, daunted by the complexity of the Kabbalah, but to see it as something that anyone can delve into, as long as one approaches it with some care. And I want to express my gratitude to Margot Pritzker of the Pritzker family, The whole project began really because she was studying with a rabbi